Hi guys, so before we get into it, a quick disclaimer that there will be spoilers today, although given that this movie tells you its ending right at the start, the subject of spoilers is kind of irrelevant. So I put this on the other night. I wasn't massively looking forward to it because I felt that the third film let me down somewhat. So when I sat down to watch the fourth one, it was very much the case of, this feels like work, but let's just get on with it. So imagine my surprise when not only was I rewarded with a decent rebound movie here, but this might actually be my favourite in the franchise. And the biggest reason why that was even possible is because they finally changed the location. We've left the Abaddon and we've gone to a place called the Carmichael Manor. So this is a mockumentary found footage horror film in the same vein as the previous three. We're just in a different place this time. So we've got this documentary about three horror podcasters, or they might just own a horror website, I'm not sure. They go and stay at the Carmichael Manor, which is in this rural part of New York State somewhere. And the reason they're going there is to look for supernatural activity, because the owners of the manor, one night in the past, half of them were murdered and the other half just completely disappeared. So an intriguing mystery right there in and of itself. Now, our three podcasters, it turns out that they died in the manor at the end of their 4 or 5 night stay, and we're now watching a documentary about their plight. So we'll get to see a lot of their footage that they took on their camcorders during their stay. We'll get to see some camcorder footage that was taken by the Carmichaels when they used to live in the place. And we'll see interview clips. And as we're going along, we will also discover some interesting links between the Carmichael Manor and the Abaddon Hotel. I mean, of course, they exist, or this wouldn't even be a Hell House movie, right? So it's a really good, multifaceted story, and I just wish that writer-director Stephen Cognetti had done this with the third film instead of beating that Abaddon dead horse for one more flick. There are only 3 main characters this time around, and I think some people will spot some similarities with the Blair Witch Project, certainly in terms of how the film is structured. But the fact that there is only 3, it does seem to add more atmosphere to proceedings. There's no safety in numbers for this new set of characters. They are very isolated from a very early stage. You compare this to the huge ensemble cast from Lake of Fire, where it felt like the final girl there couldn't walk down a corridor without bumping into a key grip or a costume assistant. This fourth movie feels like it's got a smaller budget, not just because of the much reduced cast, but also because of the limited amount of interiors they had to work with. From the outside, the Carmichael Manor looks bigger than the Abaddon, but on the inside, it seems to me that they only had like a few of the same sort of corridors and a few bedrooms. I don't feel like we get to see even half of what should be inside that Carmichael Manor in terms of rooms. But with the Abaddon, I always felt like we were seeing more rooms than could possibly fit into the Abaddon when you're looking at it from the outside. So this new one, this fourth one, much more of a minimalist film for me in terms of the horror that's going on right in front of your eyes, and yet still scarier and better somehow. Cognetti has always been good at the scare scenes, but I feel like he lost his way a little bit in the previous one. His well of inspiration had kind of run dry, and I can only really put that down to the fact that he just had nothing left to say about the Abaddon. But given a new building to work with, it's like he's completely re-energized this time around, re-inspired. Is that even a word? He comes up with all sorts of really creepy scenarios and set pieces for this film, and the sense of escalation throughout proceedings is really well paced as well. So this movie is split into 4 nights, and then at the end of the 4th night, our heroes and heroines buy their ticket, but there's a real upscaling of terror as the runtime goes on. So in the first night, for example, you'll get a good scare scene, and then you'll know that there's going to be a bit of downtime for a while, so you can just sort of cool down a little bit. But by the time you get to the 4th night, it's just relentless scare after scare with very few gaps in between. And I liked that about this film, the way that it just keeps increasing in intensity all the way through. The closest film to this one in terms of style is probably Hell House 2. Now, there's a number of good scare scenes in the second film, but they are much more evenly paced throughout. You'll get to enjoy all this good content and then the film ends. But in this 4th one, definitely a better sense of escalation. I do take umbrage with the continued use of the mockumentary style. It's not that I haven't enjoyed films like this in the past. Actually, what it is, more than anything, is this idea of giving the outcome of the film away at the start, which seems to be a bit of a Hell House staple at this point, but I just think it takes a little bit away from the movie if you know how it's going to end. I mentioned Blair Witch Project earlier. Can you imagine how differently that film would have felt if we knew that the characters were going to end up stood in front of that basement wall at the end? Let's say we were shown that footage at the beginning and then we're just building up to there. I think a lot of the effectiveness of Blair Witch would be taken away somehow. Something else I might have changed about the documentary stuff in this film is that you don't find out how the characters were died. Yes, we see their moment of death where something jumps on them in the dark, whether it be a clown or something else, but we don't know exactly how they are killed. I think what we could have done with is at least one interview clip with a cop where they describe the violence that occurred. Maybe they tell about what they found when they walked in on the crime scene. I think it just would have added a bit more weight to proceedings. At least they haven't used bearded bloke for the documentary again, this same Captain Birdseye type figure who keeps popping up in all the Hell House documentaries. This one is meant to take place like 30 years after the previous film, I think. So maybe that's why they couldn't bring him back, because he would have been in his 50s surely in Hell House 3. It would have been funny if they brought him back anyway, you know. Well, I thought my documentary career was over after the Lake of Fire, but then the thing with the Carmichaels happened, and sure enough, 6 months later, I get the call. They said, "Are you free on Wednesday?" I said, "I'm free on Wednesday." I think the characters are very good. I liked Margot and Rebecca as a couple. I think the actress who played Rebecca is probably the standout of the movie. I think her name is Destiny Leilani Brown. But she's excellent. She has to do a lot of freaking out in this movie because she's the most scared of the characters. And in the hands of a bad actress, that could have got really annoying. Just the same repetitive squeals and carry-ons all the way through. But this actress does a very good job of mixing it up. She gives you just about the right amount of freak out depending on the situation. And I thought she was excellent. She had a lot to figure out with this role, I think, and she did it very well. But I think the other two actors, good as well. The one who plays Margot and the one who plays Chase. It's a good little trio. It will keep the movie moving forwards. And they get to be part of some great setups as well. I particularly enjoyed the scene where Rebecca is on the video call to her boss and she's showing her all these different pictures of houses, and then some strange pictures make it into the mix. And it reminded me a little bit of the end of Halloween, where you see all those still shots of where Myers might end up being. Another great scene where there's like a hike into the woods. I didn't expect this because with the previous three films, we always stay with the Abaddon. We never go anywhere in the local surroundings. But with this film, there is a little excursion and it was most welcome. And I think what they find in the woods is really scary. And I'll give you one more scene that had pretty good effect on me. It's when Chase is sending the text messages to the two girls in their bedrooms. Like, I do this thing sometimes where if the scene is freaking me out a little bit, my shoulders just start doing this a bit. It's sort of my physical way of just coping with a creepy scenario. My shoulders are going like pistons during this scene, like genuinely scary stuff. So lots of really good setups throughout Hell House 4. And also, the backstory with the Carmichaels works really well in this. I'm not even sure we find out the outcome of what happened to the two men in that family, unless I missed it. But the mythology lore type stuff in this film, I think, is pretty nicely handled. All the connections between the Carmichael Manor and the Abaddon just about fit. I really enjoyed the scene where we find out Margot used to go to the same fun fair as at least one of the clowns, maybe all of them. If I had to name one negative, it would be that the camcorder footage of the Carmichaels is a little bit naff. They've tried to make it look really old by having it like slightly frizzled, and they've given the Carmichaels these really old-fashioned clothes, but the quality of that footage, nevertheless, is just not really scary. I needed that material to be a bit more sinister and a bit less You've Been Framed. But on the whole, the movie's excellent. Like, this is probably the best of the franchise, in my opinion. Cognetti has done two types of Hell House movie up to this point. So 1 and 3... are kind of the same. They feature commercial enterprises building up to an opening night, and then it all goes wrong. And then you've got the style of Hell House 2 and 4, which are basically just people trapped in a house or a manor or whatever. I prefer the style of 2 and 4. They would be my favourite movies here. And then I've also got a big respect for the original as well. But when it comes to deciding between 2 and 4, I think 4's the best one, because number 2 has got all that dodgy stuff with the talk show, whereas the fourth one, far less weaknesses for me. So it's really damn cool, actually, sitting here now talking about this, realising that this is my favourite of the series. It's always nice when you're watching a long-running horror franchise and you just come to the realisation that the fourth film or the fifth film is the best, and that doesn't happen very often, but for me anyway, it's happened here. But we've got one more film to go, Hell House Lineage, in August, and I just really hope that Cognetti can bring it home now, finish strong. It would be a real shame if he's going to do another Lake of Fire type experience when he's repaired so much of the damage of that movie with this one. So fingers crossed he can come up with something good with the fifth one, just to round out what has been an excellent little franchise up to this point. Right, it's time to get to the bag of terror so I can show you my score for Hell House Origins, the Carmichael Manor. Here's the bag of terror. Let's see what we've got. We've got 1, 2, 3, and oh, what's this? A guest appearance from a bloody axe. I didn't expect that. What is the bag of terror playing at today? Anyway, total score, 4 out of 5. This makes it the joint highest of the franchise, along with Hell House 2, although I'm just giving a slight nudge for Hell House 4, in my opinion. Right, I'll be back soon to cover the fifth and final one. I think it's being released in August. It's still July at the time of filming this, so there is going to be a bit of a delay before I can get around to the fifth one, obviously, but I will certainly do it when the time comes. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.